Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Gosh, I can't believe it's already Wednesday. Hey, Alex. Good morning. Children willing, I will be back when you start, CC. Okay, girl. Lisa Irwin, Samara, Lisa 54, 54. I can't talk. Lisa 54, Cheryl Lynn, Toxic Orchid, Misty Walker, Mike, Red Media. Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? I'm doing okay. It's just a little cold here. But other than that, it's been a good morning. It's quiet around here. I got the house to myself. Just me and the dogs. Anyhow, I got us a lot to talk about this morning if I can get into my notes here. Joe Exotic's dad passed away from complications from COVID-19. Also, I have an update about Camille McKinney, also known as Little Cupcake. They have charged her alleged killers. Well, they've been indicted on capital murder charges. Camille was killed October 12th, 2019. Also, there's an Amber Alert in Wyoming. And I'm going to tell you or show y'all a video about Orinn and Orson West. Well, it's about their adoptive dad. There is a neighbor that caught Trezell West on security camera the evening that the boys disappeared. Let me get over to my chat for just a minute. Hey, Cup City. Morning. Welcome. Hey, Tam. Good morning. Short, nice. Never lose hope. Rainy day woman. Hey, CC and fam. Listening. Can't really text, but I'm here. Prayers for those babies. Well, welcome. Hope y'all are doing okay this morning. So Red Media, shout out to her. Y'all check her channel out. She does good true crime videos. She sent me a video this morning. Let me get it pulled up here. And it's a video of the neighbor's security camera. And I'm just going to show y'all because I'm bad at explaining. It shows Trezell West when he's going to look for the kids. I'm just going to tell you, he don't do much looking. Let me get this pulled up. Let me unplug my mic. Okay. Now this starts about 5 minutes in.
It's good to stay live still, right? All right. So this good? It's good?
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we are gonna watch the video from the 21st of December, and this is gonna be his actions on that day. Okay, I'm ready, bro.
All right, so it's 4:30 right now. This is when he reports his kids missing. That's his house. That's his truck right there, his van that was parked in front of the house. So,
hey, you think, is there any way, bro, not to bug? Is there any way we can hit the light? All right, so he's gonna turn probably off, no? What do you think? Is that good? Okay, all right, let's do it, guys. Okay, so this is at 4:30, like he's saying.
maybe these little lights are
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Pretty dark there at 4:30.
like that. Dark?
Yeah, you want to black out or what?
It's up to you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Good?
Okay, all right, guys. So he got to turn the lights off real quick. That way you can see a little bit better.
All right, so this is the time he's going to report his kids missing. So it's 4:31. He's going to come out right now. You'll see him come out. Coming out in a second now.
Okay, so what we're looking at, guys, is here. See that van?
Yeah.
So he's going to come in outside any moment now to make to call.
Well, he's gonna look for his kids apparently, but you're gonna see how he does it and what he does. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There you go. So the light came on. You see it?
Which in the front?
Yeah, the front little light. He opened this front side door. You see the door
There's the
open?
van.
Okay, the door's open to the van. Yep.
Yeah, you see it?
Yep.
So he's gonna hop in his van right now.
Shuts the door.
Hey, can you guys see this video? Hit 1 if you can see it pretty good.
Okay, so he turns his van on, bro.
Okay.
So apparently he's looking for his kid, but it takes him about a minute just to sit in his van and turn his car on. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And he didn't even look in the front yard, nowhere on the sides. You seen it?
Nothing.
He didn't come up the street. So he hops in his van. I mean,
Look
I
at.
don't think he's going in a speed where you're searching for somebody. You're going pretty fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
made that turn right there. You're not looking for nobody. You know what I mean?
Okay, where's
So
he going?
He makes that turn, right?
That right here by his
Yeah, so,
house.
I mean,
Okay.
you gotta figure your kids are missing. You don't know which direction they went, right?
Right.
So he takes off that direction for I don't know what reason, looking for his kids. But we got lights, Christmas lights on this side. We got a big open lot. He's got his fence line right here. He didn't
Right.
even come out to look behind his fence
He
line.
didn't do none of that shit.
None of that shit. I mean, your kid missing. Why would you jump in your car?
Yeah.
You're gonna.
Yeah,
walk
of
around,
course.
correct.
You guys just seen that, right, guys? So he walks out.
Yeah.
He freaking gets in the van. He doesn't even come to look in this area here.
No neighbors.
He's not running down the street, freaking looking this way. He's not running that way.
He sits in the car.
He sits in the car. He gets in, starts it up, warms it up for a little bit, and then he just casually drives out.
So about 4 minutes, he's gone. So
4
then you fast
minutes
forward.
gone.
Okay? Yeah, I appreciate you doing this.
So we go about
All right, guys. So this is the neighbor, man. This dude's awesome. He has it on.
So
Wait, I see the van is just there right now.
So this is 35.
Who's this? What's this?
It's just a shadow. It looks like a car, but it's not. It's just a shadow right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
So
That's a shadow?
yeah, I know it looks like a car, but it's not.
Okay, so
So you see him back there? He's driving back there.
that's him. That's
Yeah.
him. So he's in the field right now, driving.
These are little streets back here, but the field starts like about
Oh,
there,
okay,
a little higher than that. Maybe,
Yeah.
but it's still residential right there where he's living.
Okay, so that was him that just came from right here.
Yeah, but he's on the street, two, 3 streets
So
over.
you
You see him coming?
Yeah, yeah,
See him? Bam.
yeah.
See that car? Headlights. So
Okay,
he's
so
about to
there-
pull up.
There he is again.
He came back.
That was a quick
That was
trip,
about
wasn't it?
4 or 5 minutes. He
He
was gone.
He was gone 4 to 5 minutes. And as you guys see, even on the timestamp as well, he was only gone for maybe 4 to 5 minutes. Boom, there he is.
So he comes, opens the door, gets out, goes in front of his house, and just stands there, bro. You know what I mean? You see him?
Yeah,
You see him? He's just standing there. He's not looking for no kid.
yeah, he's not.
So he's standing there. He'll
He's
stand.
behind a tree right now, right?
Yeah, he's behind that tree where he thought it was a car, but it was like a shadow.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just standing there.
Okay. So I'm going to put the link into this video so you guys can go check it out yourselves. Subscribe to that guy's channel. He's doing good coverage. He's following this case closely. Now, in this video, you do not see the mom come outside and look for her 2 missing toddlers. Now she's in the house allegedly wrapping presents. The other 4 kids are gone to the grandparents. So why didn't she come outside to look for the boys? They don't seem too concerned to me. I mean, this guy comes out, and you can see on the surveillance footage, he comes out, he takes his sweet time getting in the vehicle, and then he only looks for the boys. He's only gone about 4 to 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you why they're not looking for the boys. Because they know they're not gone. They did something to those boys a long time ago, a while back. That's what I think. I don't think these kids ever moved in this house in California City. I really don't. Now, on the 19th, I was told, let me plug my mic back up. Let me make sure I'm not muted. Okay. So on the 19th, allegedly, the family goes shopping. All the kids go with them. So if they really went shopping and the 2 little boys, Orinn and Orson, were with them, they should be able to find some surveillance video of them. Rumor has it they haven't been seen since October. Well, Tam, I read that none of the neighbors had seen the boys since the family moved in September. I wonder if any neighbors heard him calling for them. If I'm not mistaken, Trezell West said that he stopped and asked some neighbors if they had seen the boys. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that he said that. He did say he was yelling their names out the window. No, nor is there any sign of forward he supposedly collected in my issue over the gate. Oh, you mean the wood? Like, why was he does he have a fire? Do they have a fireplace inside their home? Most people who have fireplaces, they have wood already gathered and stacked, that they can just easily walk outside and get. Watch the rest of the video. They show the day of the 19th, 4 kids, not 6. In this video that we just watched. Okay. Let me.
You see him? Yeah.
Let me see if I can get it pulled back up.
Yeah, he's not. So he's standing there. He's behind the tree right now, right? Yeah, he's behind that tree where he's this car. It was like a shadow. Yeah. And he's just standing there, bro. Look, so this freaking lane is. Well, he's not looking for no people.
Like, I was trying to pull it up and it just kept playing. I don't know what was wrong with that. Is it in this video too? Let me get back to my YouTube because I can't see my chat. Any normal mother would be panicked if their 3 and 4-year-olds wandered out of the yard and they couldn't find them. This lady never comes out of the house. Why? Because she's not panicked. She's not worried. They know exactly where the boys are.
I'm not looking for no kids, bro.
Okay. I hope I don't get struck for sharing this video. Let's just watch a little bit more.
Now he's walking back. He's not looking for nobody. You see him, he didn't come this way. He didn't look on that fence. No. And you could see his backyard.
Yeah. If anybody walks in that backyard, you would have seen shadows. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's not even in his backyard looking for no kids.
None. What was that?
I just it was a dog. Oh, okay. So if you see the dog again,
Yeah, you can see the dog.
So if it was a human, you would have seen a way better. Of course, to see a little dog,
Yeah.
So you would have seen somebody back there searching, looking, and he's got a big backyard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back shed behind it. You know what I mean?
So he's still right now. Is he on the farm right now? Or?
So what happens is he pretty much stands there right in front of his house for about another 5 to 6 minutes when the cops pull up. So at this point, I believe you already called the cops. We're assuming from the reaction time and the arrival time of the police,
Right. And I appreciate you guys tuning in Thank you guys for doing that. Spread the word. Let other people know that we are alive. And by doing that, click the thumbs up. Hey, so the neighbor, this is a good dude right here, man. He just gave me access to come in here and look at this video surveillance that he has from his house. This guy is a piece of shit, you know?
Yep.
You can tell.
I mean, you could
He's
tell
not looking for.
if he came this way towards my house,
Yeah.
The first place he would look is right here, bro.
He's not acting like someone looking for their child, bro.
You would have seen him come up the street, go to your neighbor's van, man.
Yeah, right away, bro. Running.
Panicking, bro. He's not panicking.
No, he's not panicking, bro. Yeah, this guy's not panicking.
I watched this video like so many times, and I try to like break it down. You know what I mean? So the next interesting part is that pretty much he's gonna stand in front of his house. You see the dog walking around in the back. You could see nobody's back there. It's just a dog.
Yeah.
Well, so the cops are gonna pull up soon.
Okay.
And you'll see what he does next, which is freaking crazy.
Oh, he's gonna do something right now?
I mean, I wasn't gonna fast forward so you could see that he doesn't come towards this area.
Okay.
I'm sure you could tell already that he's not.
Yeah, he's not. I see lights coming from the rear.
That's just a neighbor.
Oh, okay.
Passing by or something.
All right.
He's as a neighbor passing by. So he's pretty much still right there. His wife, him, they do not come out. You know?
Right. I will see. Joe Dirt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Boom. Something just turned on.
Okay, so this is 4:48.
4:48. Okay. Right.
It was 4:33 when he hopped in his car and took off the first time, or something like that.
Right. And he was gone for like 4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 or 5 minutes. He
Right.
was gone.
Right.
Okay. Let's stop watching that for a second because that's like a really long video. I would like to see that surveillance footage from the 19th, though. Let me see if I can get my chat pulled back up. My little Yorkie started coughing during that. I think she's okay now, though. Okay, let me get back to my chat here. Tam, he had some battery issues and had to change his battery. So it's a little before halfway. Oh, okay. Well, when I get off my live stream, I'll go back and watch the whole video. Hold on a second. Guys, I may have to end up giving my little dog some cough medicine real quick. Did he go in the house after he got back? I think so. I think he did go back in the house. At one point, I was thinking maybe they rehomed the adopted children. Yeah, it actually went through my mind this morning. Hey, could they have these kids stashed somewhere? I mean, it's a possibility because I read about a case where a dad actually kept his son behind this hidden wall in the house, and he had reported his kid missing. And this was when Nancy Grace was still on the air. And he was actually doing an interview with Nancy Grace when the information came through that they had found his son in his own home behind a wall. I believe that happened in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, Lucy, take care of the baby. We will still be here. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you guys being so understanding. I think she's going to be okay. She don't act like she's going to cough anymore. I don't like giving her cough medicine unless I have to. It's just so strong. It makes her out of it, Anyways, guys, we'll just have to keep following this. I hope there is a break in the case today or sometime this week. preferably today. I want to know where those little boys are. What happened to them? Unfortunately, I think those little boys are no longer on this earth. I hope and pray that I'm wrong. But something is not right with these two. I mean, here you got a missing 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. The mom don't even come out of the damn house to help look for the kids. Something is not right with that picture. And he was taking his sweet time getting in the vehicle. And then when he came back, he was only gone like 3 or 4 minutes looking for him. Then when he comes back, he's just standing in front of the house in a tree. He's not going into the backyard to look for the kids or anything. They did not search for those little boys because they know exactly where those 2 little boys are at. That's my opinion. Okay. Also, guys, I think Chad Dunbell is due in court today. There was supposed to be a hearing about, remember, they filed complaints against the prosecutor. What's his name? Rob Wood. They said he tried to coerce witnesses. There's supposed to be a hearing about that today. They're trying to get the prosecutor removed from the case. Okay. I tried to look for a time for that, and I could not find a time. Let me share this next story here. I'm trying to get it set up. I'm going to look at my chat first. Court today about Rob Wood. Do you know what time that is, Lisa Irwin? I bought me a planner yesterday, guys, so I can keep track of all these court dates and stuff. I knew that there was a court date today, but I actually thought it was over Lori, but I think it's Chad's. Maybe both. On the 22nd, Megan Boswell has a hearing, 9 a.m. Prosecutors are going to announce what penalty they're going to be seeking, if they're going to go for the death penalty or what. Crap, if I just ruined someone out, time someone out, I'm sorry. Oh, that's all right. Hey, Light Feather. How are you? Okay. Anyways, I got sidetracked. So, Camille Cupcake McKinney, suspects who blamed each other are both indicted for murder and kidnapping of the 3-year-old. 2 Alabama suspects have been indicted for the kidnapping and death of 3-year-old Camille Cupcake McKinney, who was found murdered in 2019. AL.com reports that Patrick Stallworth, age 40, and Derek Brown, 30, were indicted on capital murder during a kidnapping and capital murder of a child under the age of 14. They are also facing federal charges of kidnapping and conspiracy to kidnap a minor. Stallworth and Brown were accused of abducting Cupcake from a birthday party at the Tom Brown Village Public Housing Community in Birmingham on October 12, 2019. Witnesses claimed a man handing out candy was spotted putting Camille barefoot into his car. The toddler was thrown lifeless in a dumpster at the Woodside Condominiums in Center Point, where Stallworth and Brown lived. Cupcake's body was later discovered at the Santec Waste Services landfill in Gardendale on October 22nd, 2019. An examination revealed that Cupcake McKinney died shortly after her abduction from asphyxiation by suffocation. The toddler had toxic levels of methamphetamine and trazodone, an antidepressant, in her system. Actually, trazodone, it may be an antidepressant, but I know it's used for sleeping too. Stallworth reportedly had a prescription for trazodone, but claimed Brown was stealing his pills and taking them with meth. According to court testimony, Stallworth purchased an energy drink and a pill for erectile dysfunction at a local convenience store on the night of Cupcake McKinney's abduction. You sick freaking weirdo. Brown's lawyers claim Stallworth's DNA was recovered from underneath Cupcake's fingernails, but hers was not. However, a plastic mattress covering seized from the couple's apartment was said to have blood belonging to Stallworth, Brown, and McKinney. Stallworth repeatedly alleged he entered his apartment and found Brown with McKinney. He said Brown asked him to sexually assault the child, but he refused. Conversely, Brown said she witnessed Stallworth sexually assault the toddler. Both suspects allegedly turned on each other when questioned by investigators. They both were involved. They both did it. Prosecutors said the state of McKinney's body made it impossible to determine whether she suffered any sexual trauma. Stallworth was also charged with multiple counts of child pornography after investigators reportedly found photos of young girls on his phone. Authorities said the images did not depict Camille McKinney. Brown has pending kidnapping charges for a 2018 incident involving her 3 children and the Department of Human Resources. AL.com reported that Brown had lost custody of her 3 children for putting them in a clothes dryer as punishment. Freaking monster. Brown and Stallworth remain jailed. A preliminary hearing in regard to the state charges is scheduled for December 10th. And I need to write that down. Look at those 2 weirdos. They both kidnapped her and they both murdered her. I believe she was sexually assaulted. They couldn't be sure if she was or not because of the state of the body, but I think she was. That's why he bought that damn erectile dysfunction pill, the freaking weirdo. Look how pretty little Cupcake is. Now, her dad said that they preferred her to be called Cupcake because that's what he nicknamed her and that's what everybody called her. Pretty little thing. Bless her heart. I'll never understand why things like this happen to kids. Why, I shouldn't say things like this, but why God allows things like this. That angers me. Disgusted pieces of crap. Yeah, they lured that little girl by giving out candy. I mean, she was at a birthday party. Her parents were there. And she wandered outside of the apartment complex, and this weirdo was handing out candy. Hey, Natalie, good morning. Hey, Remy. Yeah, she put her kids in a dryer for punishment. People are sick, Mike. They're freaking weirdos. Who does that? A freaking monster. A monster does that. People that beat on little children and people that are vulnerable are really cowards. They're really cowards. It makes them feel powerful to beat and abuse something that's weaker than them. They're sick. They deserve the death penalty for this. And then after they murdered this little girl, then they just discarded her like she was a piece of trash. You tell me how any woman could go along with kidnapping a kid and sexually assaulting them and murdering them. I don't know how any man could, but for a woman to do that, I don't know. I'm just lost for words. It's just sick to me. Sickos. I can't wait till they get their karma. I hope they get the death penalty. I'm pretty sure Alabama has the death penalty. Anyhow, let's see. What else was we going to talk about this morning? Let me find my stuff, y'all. Oh, yeah, Joe Exotic. Joe Exotic's dad has died from COVID-19 complications. They're trying to get Joe a pardon. I think they're in D.C. right now. But if they can't get him a pardon, they're going to try to get him a pass to where he can go to his dad's funeral. Let me get the article pulled up. Okay, this is by TMZ. Joe Exotic, father dies from COVID-19. Legal team in D.C. today pleading for a pardon. Hey, Trump's a wild character. He may pardon Joe. You never know about Donald Trump. Okay, it says Joe Exotic's father has died, and Joe's loss is now dovetailing with a trip to D.C. for a pardon that would allow Joe to attend his dad's funeral. We've learned Joe's father, Francis, let me see if I can never say his real name. Shrivel or something like that. I can never pronounce it. Recently died following complications from COVID. The funeral is set for Saturday in Oklahoma, and Joe desperately wants to go. And I'm pretty sure Joe's mom has already passed away. As we reported, Joe's legal team, headed up by Eric Love, hopped on a friend's jet with Tiger King rap that they're flying to D.C., making it a show. Love has told TMZ he has a big meeting with someone in the White House, and it's pardon related, but he's not saying who. If Trump doesn't grant the pardon, they have a plan B. They're going to go to a judge and ask for a day pass. I guess they're going to ask for a furlough. Essentially, it's just a temporary release so Joe can attend his dad's funeral. Oh, well, let me show y'all the big Tiger King jet. It's pretty cool. Okay. That's a nice jet. It says, as we previously reported, the Tiger King star's legal team hit the road for D.C. back in May with a bus wrapped in a plea to get Joe sprung from prison. They believe the pardon is in play. He may get pardoned. I think there's that Eric Love. Let's play this video. Uh-oh. I don't think it's going to play.
We have 10.
We'll play the video and see what it says. Well, the ad is taking forever. Crap on that. I'm not waiting forever for that to play. Anyways, prayers for Joe's family. I hate that his dad passed away. That must be an awful feeling to be in prison and have one of your loved ones pass away. Hey, Will. I think I see you sneaking in here. How are you doing? Hey, 100% Pure Love. Good morning. How are you? Laugh out loud. At the rate things are going, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he was pardoned. Although just a few weeks ago, I would have thought that would never be possible. Well, I didn't think that Trump was going to pardon him because it wouldn't be a good look for him because he may decide to run for president again in 4 years. He can if he wants. But now I'm thinking, hey, Trump's a wild one, so he may just pardon Joe. Hey, Colleen. How are you doing? Let me give y'all some late slips. Okay, here's y'all's late slips. Y'all get a free pass today. Oh my gosh, guys, I about forgot to tell y'all. Guess what I did yesterday? I am such a hypocrite because I said I was not going to do this. I bought the Chris Watts book, The Murders of Christopher Watts by Cheryl Cadle. Yeah, I bought it. It's on my Kindle. I didn't actually order the book, the paperback, but I got it for the Kindle. It was only $3.99, and I'm on chapter 15. I just got it yesterday evening, too. I read and read and read yesterday evening. I'm not going to lie, it was interesting, or I couldn't have kept reading it like that, you know? But I'm going to talk more about it tonight on our channel members meeting. Bye, Remy. Have a good day. Now, I said I wasn't going to buy the book, but I ran across it when I was looking for a true crime trivia book, and so I just bought it, $3.99. Also bought a true crime trivia book, so we'd have something to do at the channel members live streams. Okay, what else was I going to tell you about? It looks like cult mom Lori Ballo hearing to disqualify prosecutor in case of dead children. If they're in court, we may have to watch this, guys. Before we get on to that, I'm going to click on that and see if we can see them in court in just a minute. But I want to tell y'all about a missing kid from Wyoming. It's a 6-year-old little girl. Her name is Savon Jorgensen, 6 years old. I think that's how you say the name. I did look it up this morning. Now, allegedly, she was took from her bed. She was staying with her aunt and uncle. They got up, the window's open, the little girl's gone. Let me share her picture. So, of course, they have issued an Amber Alert. Wait, it says there's just an update about this. I think she's been found safe. They hadn't found her this morning when I was reading it. Found safe. 6-year-old girl disappears from bedroom. Window found open. Oh, thank God. Thank God they found her. Wyoming authorities issued an Amber Alert for a little girl reportedly last seen in her bedroom. Oil City News reports that 6-year-old Savon Jorgensen was last seen by her aunt and uncle around 11 p.m. Monday night at a home on the Wind River Reservation in Wind River County. When they checked on her the following morning, Savon was gone. The girl's window was reportedly open and her clothes were missing. Where the hell was she? Savon is 3 feet 5 inches tall, weighs around 100 pounds. She has brown eyes, black hair, and was last seen wearing a gray shirt with yellow sleeves. But it don't say where they found her or anything. It just says Savon has been located safe, according to police. Well, that's great news, because I was getting ready to tell y'all about her story. I was getting ready to say, well, that's weird. She was with her aunt and uncle, and then like she's just gone from the bedroom and the window's open. So weird. Anyways, that's good news. I'm glad they found her. Okay. This mouse is not working right. I keep pushing to close out the ads, and they're not closing. Jesus. I've never seen so many ads in my life.
That indicated multiple exceptions to when recordings could be made.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to be clear about it. I thought I was well within my ethics to record a conversation. One of the exceptions is to
Can y'all
protect the
hear that?
client's exposure for perjury. And, you know, so I wanted to know exactly what they said when they made statements to the police.
So
and that was the reason for inquiring.
So I guess you led into my question.
Yeah.
you had concerns while you were present in that meeting that your client may be susceptible to perjury charges. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And as part of that discussion, you were concerned that Mr. Woods was coercing your client, Ms. Shiflett. Is that correct?
Well, I didn't have the concern going into that, but I mean, obviously, it's not why I turned on the recorder. But during the conversation, I was concerned about the conversation that they had.
And at this point, upon participating in that meeting, you strongly felt that Ms. Shiflett had been influenced by Mr. Wood. Is that correct?
I was bothered by it to the point where I called Mr. Means and said, you know, you got to be aware of a few things.
Okay. And what specifically bothered you?
It bothered me that there was discussion about potential punishment for my client's sister. You know, Mr. Wood was well aware of the emotional relationship between my client and the defendant, Lori Daybell Vallow, or whatever we're calling her.
Okay.
There was a recording that Mr. Wood heard between my client and her where my client was just vehemently upset and angry, and you could tell the emotional turmoil that she was going through. And I thought it was it concerned me that he was discussing potential death penalty results for my client. It concerned me that he was discussing the theory of the case with my client prior to her being interviewed. It concerned me that he was saying things about Mr. Means and his competency to handle this case. He said it not only to my client, but if my recollection's correct, he was kind of inferring that I wasn't aware of Mr. Means' level of experience and that, you know, he was in over his head on this case. It wasn't my experience in interacting with Mr. Means. And I was concerned about that. I thought it was at a minimum unprofessional. And you know, on the other level, placing yourself in an improper role with a witness to have those kinds of discussions.
And the improper role you talked about is Mr. Wood, in essence, was turning himself in as a witness in this case, suggesting the theory of the case to a material witness. Is that correct?
Well, and not only that, but offering evidence about some of the witnesses, you know, in terms of his interactions with Mr. Daybell, those kinds of things. I just saw no purpose for that. You know, other than to, you know, have a discussion with a witness. I also thought it was, you know, and I was in the room. I was part of the discussion. I don't think I had much to say during it all, but there were just it was described as kind of an introductory conversation. We had a similar one with my client, Sulema Pastenis, but that one had more to do with her use immunity agreement and just kind of finalizing those details and getting that signed and things like that. But this was, you know, just want to take a chance to say hi and things like that, which I get. You know, it's important to know the parties, but the conversation didn't go that way. It wasn't like, you know, hi, I'm the prosecutor, this is my deputy, and we're going to be the ones in the room that you're not seeing, listening to the interviews. That kind of stuff I would have expected. But, you know, I've been practicing, and you've not asked me this, I've been practicing for 27 years. It was curious. I hadn't seen anything like it. I was curious about what the purpose of it all was. It was much longer than it needed to be a simple introductory conversation. And there was, you know, like I said, several things in the conversation that were said that you know, made, you know, buzzers go off in my head.
Okay. I want to lay a little bit of additional foundation in regards to the recording. My understanding is that Mr. Wood had approached you and said, I want to come down to Chandler, Arizona to do a meet and greet with Summer Shiflett and Sulema Pastenis. Is that your recollection?
I don't think that's exactly how the conversation went. To be candid, I think it was always in terms of, we are going to come down there. We're going to be interviewing other witnesses. We'd like to speak to your clients. They were interested in speaking to Summer and Sulema and Melanie and Ian. That was the ones they had spoken to me about. It was not a meet and greet. It was an interview. I took it to be a formal, the police are going to be coming, the FBI, the, you know, other law enforcement officials are going to be sitting in there with regard to the multiple investigations that are ongoing, to which my clients are directly or tangentially involved. And so it wasn't, Rob Wood, the prosecutor, coming down to meet these people. It was the legal team that was prosecuting this case coming down to conduct interviews in a formal investigation.
So when the witnesses are going to be interviewed by the police, you anticipated that as part of this process. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you anticipated that Mr. Wood advised you that he was going to come down and introduce himself to your two clients. Is that correct?
I don't know that he said it in those terms, to be candid with you, Mr. Pryor. I think I knew that he was going to be here. I kind of implied that he was going to be here based on the conversations that he was saying we're going to be coming down there.
Yeah.
I've participated in many interviews with investigations where the prosecutor participates and where he doesn't participate. And I don't know if he was intending to be an active part of that investigation or do anything. I've had it where the prosecutor sits in the room the entire time and is part of the process or is proposing questions to the investigator. I didn't know what the logistics of it were going to look like, but I did have an understanding that he was going to be there.
Did you have an understanding that after Mr. Wood introduced himself, that he was going to question, or excuse me, and I misspoke. Did you have an anticipation that Mr. Wood was going to introduce himself to Summer Shiflett and then proceed with 18 minutes of discussing the case with Summer Shiflett without asking only one question?
I didn't have any idea what that meeting was going to be like, other than, as I said, my 27 years of experience. I expected there to be some handshaking at the beginning, and then we'd go into the formal business that we were there to do.
Okay.
He did not anticipate to me in any way, shape, or form, or maybe not the word anticipate, but he did not forecast in any way to me that type of a conversation was going to take place. No.
Were you the party initiating the contact with your client Summer Shiflett and Zuluma Pastenes, or was it Mr. Wood initiating and trying to set up the interview process?
No, this was initiated by the prosecutorial, or the prosecutor and his investigators. And to be candid, John, I don't remember, Mr. Pryor, sorry, I don't remember who contacted me first, if it was the investigators or Mr. Wood, but I had been contacted by both the investigators and Mr. Wood with regard to the interviews. We had been trying to set it up for a while. I think this was our second or third attempt to get them scheduled. I think second attempt. And no, I did not initiate that. Both of my clients were pretty much done talking about this case, other than when they needed to. So I wasn't reaching out to anybody to say, hey, they want to talk to you. If that's what you're asking. This was in response to a call and a question that they wanted to speak to my clients.
Okay. So I want to go through some of the concerns you have. Now, you're familiar with the ABA rules of professional conduct, are you not?
As a practicing lawyer, I am.
And that's part of every lawyer's training. And on my recollection, it's been some time, and we share a similar length, or at least close to a similar length of time in practicing. But ethics is taught, I believe, in the first year of law school, is it not?
I don't remember when I took my ethics class. It was within the first 3 years for sure.
But ethics is an important part of the process of being trained to be an attorney and being educated as being an attorney. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there are specific rules that attorneys are bound by in terms of ethics. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there are specific rules that a prosecutor is bound by in terms of ethics as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as a former prosecutor, my prosecutorial experience is very limited, but and I didn't get into your experience, but as a former prosecutor, you're well aware of your ethical obligations, right?
I was a prosecutor for 3 years for Maricopa County, which is the largest prosecuting agency in the state of Arizona. And yes, I'm aware of those duties.
Okay, and part of that ethics responsibility is the administration of justice. Is that right?
One of them.
And that's one of the responsibilities to make sure that justice is performed evenly and fairly, and that both parties are afforded a fair opportunity to present their cases. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, the way I always looked at it as a prosecutor was it's adversarial, but it's not win at any cost. It's, you have to do justice first. And, there's certain standards and not certain, there are standards that are higher than for a normal adversarial process for a prosecutor.
Well, what that means is the prosecutor has to conduct himself in a manner that doesn't interfere with the administration of a fair and impartial trial in front of a jury. Is that a fair assessment?
I agree.
And you would probably understand that every jurisdiction, including Idaho, has rules of professional conduct that are all similar based on the ABA rules. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Idaho, obviously. I've never practiced there or done anything, but I'd be shocked if they didn't have rules that mirror the ABA standards and Arizona standards for that matter.
Okay. So I want to go into a few specifics in regards to the recording that you provided to Mr. Means. You talked initially about Mr. Wood discussing with Summer Shiflett the prospect of going forward on a conspiracy to commit murder charge. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Well, he had a conversation with her, and I don't recall the exact specifics about it, other than it was brought up that, I mean, it was an awkward moment. My client was expressing her, at some point in the conversation, was expressing her ambivalence or not ambivalence, or kind of being juxtapositioned in this case. She was here testifying on behalf for the state in an interview, going to be offering testimony that was potentially going to be used to harm her sister. And that bothered her on some level because she was, she loves her sister, and she expressed that to Mr. Woods. And then to have him talk about, bring up in that same context or in that same conversation, the fact that he's going to be going forward potentially with charges that could result in the death penalty for her sister that concerned me. I didn't think it was necessary. I don't know what purpose it served other than to, put a thumb on my client and to, attempt to, elicit testimony from her that would be favorable to what they were trying to do. And there was a difference here because it had been made clear to me, and it was made clear to my client in that meeting, that what they were most interested in was information about Mr. Daybell, and that they had a solid case against my client. And I had communicated that to them. There were preamble conversations to this conversation that we had the day of the interview. Mr. Wood and I and the investigators had spoken about this case. They told me their theory of the case. They told me what they were looking for and what they were angling towards. And they definitely, I was aware of what they were doing and where they were going with this. And so to have him then say those same things to my client that day, I felt unnecessary. And I mean, I'm a nice filter. You tell me that you're considering the death penalty against my client, and I can express that to her in a setting that's appropriate.
Well, it's not the death penalty against your client; it's against her sister, her own sister.
And I'm sorry, I got to pause for 1 second. There is someone knocking on my door, and no one is here to answer it. So if I can pause for 1 second and put you guys on mute.
Well, Judge, if we could do this, I think at this point it may be an opportune time for us to listen to the 18-minute conversation between Mr. Wood and Summer Shiflett. If I could ask the court to allow that tape recording to be published once Mr. Smith comes back.
Well, my concern there is we're in the middle of this line of questioning, and I have not provided an opportunity for cross-examination yet. So I'd like to take that up first before we get the request. And it looks like Mr. Smith's already back.
Sorry, I just need to answer my door. I apologize.
All
Working from home has its own exposure.
And Judge, at this time, it's my preference that the court allow us to publish the tape, allow Mr. Smith to listen to and review the tape before I proceed with any additional questioning. In no way do I want to impede the prosecutor's ability to question Mr. Smith, but I think this would be a good opportunity for that tape to be played to allow all the parties to listen to exactly what I'm referring to.
Okay, well, the conversation, the recording of that's been admitted in the hearing, so you can go ahead and publish that at this time, Mr. Pryor, if you so choose.
And Mr. Means, you had spoken to me earlier this morning and indicating that you had that available. I would defer to you if you could record, if you could publish that for us, please, sir.
Will do.
They're the ones kind of running down the kid's case because they were last seen in Rexburg. And, or were last living in Rexburg.
Right.
Tyler was last seen in Yellowstone, but and so we were the ones that like knew everything about the case, and so they assigned us on that. I'm just gonna tell you right now, we are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges against both Chad and Lori.
Good.
And we're not shy about that. I've told their attorneys. His attorney keeps pretending like I've never said that. Whatever. What? But we have to.
Yeah.
We have to. But I kind of want to give you like a little bit of background of where we are, and kind of like our kind of theory of how this ended up where it was. We know that this is not the same Lori everyone else knew. What's so strange to me is everyone we talked to who knew Lori before this, right? Well, she was primary president. She made quilts for these kids. She made everything fun.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loved her. She loved everyone.
Great mom.
Great mom. That's what everyone says. And you know, so the one thing I'm going to kind of ask you to consider is maybe something happened. I don't know what. I don't know if it's psychological. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. But something happened, and I think Colby, the way he said it to me, I think it's kind of it's like the person who's in that jail cell is not my mom, it's someone else.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is that I shouldn't say the flip side, but I want to be clear. I'm not going to pull any punches on any defendant in this case, right? Like I've got my job to do. And,
absolutely.
But we also want the truth and the whole truth and the context of it. And Chad Daybell is, did you ever meet Chad?
So I met him once at a Preparing People. I went to one Preparing People thing, and my mom and husband and I went to support Lori, and she wanted to support Mel. So we went and met Chad after he talked for like 90 seconds, maybe, if that. And then he called me when Lori got transferred to the Idaho jail. He texted me and said, Lori wanted to talk to me. And I was like, yeah. And then the second I hung up with her, he called me to ask me about bail for Lori. So I've talked to him maybe 3 times briefly on the phone, never a long extended conversation. But the first thing he said to me when he called me was that he said, Lori hasn't told me very much about the kids, so there's not really much I can tell you about it.
Right, of course you said that. Well, welcome to Chad Daybell. So what I want to kind of
I have my own opinions formed of him.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
He's highly manipulative.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm not going to say he's highly intelligent, but you don't have to be highly intelligent to be highly manipulative.
Absolutely.
He is extremely manipulative, and I want to. Your sister manipulated him in some ways too, but the context for everything that happened came from Chad.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, we have enough evidence to prosecute him, and we are. The case against your sister is stronger, but I kind of want to give you like just that background. That's kind of the context we see this as. Like this guy came in here, and you know, again, I'm not making excuses for anyone, but kind of blew up this situation. And he did not care who died, who got hurt. He did not care at all. And the other thing I'm gonna tell you is your sister truly believes that everything she's done has been done in righteousness.
I know.
And I know I'm kind of using LDS speak.
Yeah,
It's 100%. That's my interpretation also.
Yeah.
I think she 100%.
She believes it. Every once in a while, you'll see kind of a little crack in like a jail phone call. Or she'll.
Well, you've heard our conversations, so you know that I get that she's not fully aware of what she's really done.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think she is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say it this way. I think she knows what she's done.
She knew enough to lie to us about it.
Yeah, but the context under which it was done was this religious, I mean, just these ideas that are out there. I can say this because I am LDS, like no basis in the LDS faith. You said it in your phone call to her. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And we, but again, we're just really grateful for you coming in. And it's going to be hard to talk about these things.
Oh, yeah.
We know that. And they're going to be nice. Because obviously, you're not even a person of interest.
Yeah,
in this.
we've had
You're
that
not
conversation.
Yeah.
And, but part of what we need to do is understand when you have a case like this, it's not like just like a meth case, like, oh, you had meth, no one cares who you are.
Yeah, there's no drugs, no alcohol.
Yeah.
It's just
But this case is a,
yeah.
we need to understand the context of who these people are.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of what they're going to be asking you about.
Okay.
And
I'll do my best.
like I said, I know it won't be easy. I know it's going to be a hard interview. For me, but
I was wondering if you would be willing to tell me, if you're able to tell me, if there's any progress in what you know about Tylee and her death. Is there any progress in her autopsy where you understand better?
all I can tell, well,
I mean, do you have a cause yet, or is it close to one?
she is at the FBI's state-of-the-art crime lab. Unfortunately, there's a lot of deceased bodies there that they're going through.
I'm sure.
And so we're not, we don't know really any more yet. And we may never know due to the the destruction of that body. And we hope we'll find out. We may not, but obviously we know it's her. There was soft tissue that was still preserved enough to do DNA tests.
Yeah, I'm thankful you guys found them.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have ever known.
Yeah.
And I would have never dreamed that she would have ever heard them. So.
You know what? And everyone says that.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. I never would have. So it's a tragic thing.
It really is. Yeah.
And but I just want you to know how grateful we are. I know you don't have to talk to us, and so we're just grateful that you're willing to and helping us that way. And I'm sure kind of difficult knowing like they're asking you for information that's going to help them in a case against your sister. But I guess the thing I want you to know is our whole goal is just justice for these kids, and our hope as it comes to it. Your sister's actually made some overtures. She might be willing to talk to us.
I hope she does. I pray for that all the time.
We hope she does.
Yeah.
She actually was talking with Chad about talking to us before we found the bodies, just a few days before, and he talked her out of it, which is too bad. It would have been better for her to tell us.
Yeah, sure. It would have been.
I mean, we were actually just finishing up our warrant on the day that she said that. We were just getting ready to go out there, but it would have been, that would have been even better. And he talked her out of it.
Yeah.
And then the night before, she says to him again, like, hey, what do you think about, and he uses this kind of, I call it spiritual abuse, spiritual manipulation.
Yeah.
We've all seen that guy in the LDS religion whose wife has to obey him because he has the priesthood type thing. And that's not what he says, but it's the same type of thing. Well, I'm the visionary guy. So, anyway, again, I just wanted to meet with you real quick, introduce myself and Mackenzie.
I want to obviously see you.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't take any joy in doing anything that's going to harm her. I don't take joy in her spending her life in prison. There's nothing.
Sure.
It hurts to think about her being in there.
There's nothing good about a case like this.
There's nothing good about it.
Even if you win a case like Garrett's been in court, like there's cases, even as a prosecutor, like you take to trial and you win, and you're like, even at the end, you're like, well, nothing good it's all bad.
Yeah.
It's all bad. No.
The one thing, I said this to someone the other day who knows your sister, is our goal is sometimes you get a murder and all you have is that murder, and you just have to run out and charge it and then kind of put it together. We were able to put them in jail with a high bail on these lower charges and put together a case. And our goal is to have such a strong case that when she has competent counsel, I don't know if you know this, her attorney's never handled a felony before. He has never done any meaningful criminal work at all, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's lying about me, but he doesn't know what he's doing. And once we file further charges, she will be appointed counsel who will know what they're doing. And our goal is to put together such a case that they're smart enough to say, it's going to be better to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are. And make it easier for everyone. Make it easier, especially for Colby. Like, if there's someone who's lost everything, it's him. So anyway, I mainly just wanted to thank you for coming and being with us. And
it's weird to be on the prosecution and defense's side at the same time because I love everybody.
Well, it's a system. I did defense work for I did it for 5 years, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I like defending.
And and I gave me that perspective, right? Like, just because someone's committed a crime doesn't mean they're a horrible person.
So I'm so torn with all of it's such a conflicting feeling to know that this person's been good her whole life and then has made this error in judgment and got sucked into this vortex of this man.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel for her. I just have so much compassion towards her because I know that's not what she would have ever done on her own.
Right.
And so she's going to pay the price for this forever. And I hate that for her. So I'm very conflicted. But I was going to ask you on the concealment, or not the concealment, but on the conspiracy to commit murder, what's the weight of that in terms of jail time? Is that a death penalty thing? Or
it is a death penalty case in Idaho.
Are you planning to ask for that for them, or do you not?
We sure hope we don't. A lot of that will depend on her.
Okay.
And it's that's not a decision, or that's a decision we don't make actually until usually after the case is filed.
Okay.
In Idaho, we have a couple months, because a lot of times you file it, it's out there on the table, and then oftentimes that's a big motivator for people to get together and talk and try and resolve it. And that's what we hope happens. I have no desire to do that. Plus, once you do that, it's endless appeals.
Yeah.
I don't think the other family wants it at all, because the
Prolonged.
case just never resolves, really, in a way. Just kind of, they appeal this and they appeal that, and it can go on forever. So we're sure hoping not to go down there. Now, I'm not saying I won't. If we go to trial, I might, but we haven't made up our minds on that.
Okay.
We don't want to. I can tell you that from the bottom of my heart.
Knowing her, if she comes out of this state and realizes the weight of it, she may prefer that. Honestly, I think about that all the time with her, just because of what she's been through. I'm just kidding.
Well, I know that you know a lot more about Lori than I do, but we have learned a lot about Lori, and there's I mean, there's been some things happen in her life, I think, that have played into this.
Oh, definitely.
And but yeah, like I said, I talk of that in one way a little bit sure, but I want you to know that I have no desire to.
Yeah, I think you see it for what it is.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't know how you couldn't with interviewing everybody.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, when I was there in Hawaii, when that the order to produce the children was served, and I was there when they served the search warrants, where the news showed up, which I was super annoyed by that. I never wanted it. It's just blows everything up, right? At that moment, when we saw them, your sister can put on a brave face.
Oh yeah.
We were like, oh, does this guy know what he's gotten into?
Mhm.
And because she was just very, very stoic, very like, I'm not going to say a word. And he looked like he was about to pee his pants because he's actually a wimpy person.
Yeah.
Is he wimpy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great if he has someone else to do something for him, but he himself is a person.
Mhm.
And at the time, they're like, this is all her. Like, how is she hoodwink this guy? But then once we like dug into, that was the beginning as we're like starting to get facts. As we got more facts, like, oh, again, I'm not going to pull punches if I have to go to trial, but these ideas came from him.
Oh yeah.
And she had some different views on theology than like standard LDS by that point, but he really knew how to manipulate that and turn it into something even more.
His influence was there before she met him.
Yes, yeah. She was reading his books for.
It wasn't just his books. So it was like the Julie Rowe podcasts.
Oh yes.
He gave Julie Rowe a lot of her ideas. And so when she would listen to Julie Rowe, she was getting Chad ideas too at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Julie Rowe. She's interesting.
I've heard some of her podcasts. When she started talking about herself in third person all the time, I'm like,
Yeah, I listen to her podcast as well, and interesting stuff.
Garrett doesn't like it when people talk about themselves in the third person.
Neither does Rob. Yeah. Well, hey, we'll let you get going and start on this.
I was going to see if you guys wanted some wristbands to take back with you. These are wristbands I had made up for Tylee and JJ.
I'll come in.
And
That's all right.
Take them as you
take
want.
them and give them to everybody.
But I'll tell you
Take
what.
some for, if you want them, we did a balloon release.
They've got a couple of wristbands for. Let's see. There's Ron, Ray.
You could just take the whole bag with you. It's fine. Just take
Oh, do you have more than this?
Oh, I have plenty.
Okay.
You can't order less than 100, so you know.
Yeah, I made up hundreds for. I started off just doing them for Tylee and JJ's friends and teachers. We wear ours all the time, so just keep them close.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's okay.
You've been in it.
It's an emotional thing.
You know, it's interesting how you can, in Rexford, those kids wouldn't go very well. But there are kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Anytime there's kids involved,
yeah,
it's not okay.
so thank you.
Yes.
There's not a one among us that doesn't want to protect the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, well, I'll text Nathan. If you need, I don't know how long this, if we want to leave, I just got days and days. And we obviously don't have that. Any breaks you need anything?
Yeah, I'll run it. You bet. Yeah. I told him she's got questions, she needs to ask me or needs to use the bathroom, or we'll shut it down and do all that. So.
Oh, I'm on the wrong phone.
And Judge, I think that's the end of the tape.
Okay, thank you. And just so the record's clear, that was Exhibit 2 that was published. So, Mr. Pryor, you can proceed with or continue with your direct examination.
And Mr. Smith, are you still there?
Yes.
So, Mr. Smith, I've had an opportunity to listen to the tape several times and again listened to it today. Is it your position that Mr. Wood was trying to influence Ms. Shiflett to testify in a particular manner?
I don't know what he was trying to do. I mean, I can't think of any other reason why he'd be doing that than for that purpose.
Well, that's what the question is can you come up with any conceivable idea as to why Mr. Wood would do that other than the fact that he was trying to coerce, intimidate, or manipulate a material witness in a criminal case?
Yeah, I other than for the purposes he stated, just to get to know them. But like I said, that was much, much more than that. It wasn't a simple meet and greet. That conversation had a lot more elements to it than that.
Well, and I want to go over a few of those elements, and I don't want to drag this on, but some of the elements that I want to go into is that Mr. Wood made reference to LDS speak and righteousness, invoking his religious beliefs to Ms. Shiflett. You would agree with me that knowing Ms. Shiflett, that would influence her in a certain way, right?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that Mr. Wood, being a former bishop of his church, invoking LDS speak and his religious beliefs, would have an impact on Miss Shiflett. You'd agree with that then, correct?
Again, religion's very important to Summer, and her membership in the church is very significant to her. That kind of a correlation was unnecessary in my mind to make that. Everybody knew that Rob was LDS and that he was Mormon, and I don't know if Summer knew that he was a bishop or not, and he didn't say that in this conversation. But again, that whole, hey, we're the same, we're on the same team here. We're, not only it just felt awkward and unprofessional to be talking that way.
Well, you're being kind in this case, because it was a little more than awkward. It was completely unprofessional. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, it was awkward for sure, and as I said, it was unprofessional.
All right, and the unprofessional nature is that he invoked his religious beliefs, right?
Well, you heard the tape. What he said is there's just that comment about righteousness, and I think when he was talking about the LDS speak, he wasn't necessarily trying to equate so much with Summer as he was with what Chad was doing, but just that whole notion and nature of that coming up was something I probably would have steered clear of.
Right. Well, you would agree with me that anyone on a supposed meet and greet wouldn't be invoking their religious beliefs in a casual conversation, right?
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with the purpose for which that conversation was going on.
So we can assume then that the purpose of invoking the words LDS speak and then subsequent to that, a short time later, where he says, "Oh, I am LDS," the purpose of that was to gain favor with Summer Shiflett, right?
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that you're having a meet and greet and you're introducing yourself. You might want to tell them that you've got kids or something like that, which that's something that would be normal and even to everybody. But the religious side of it, again, you wouldn't do that in front of a jury, and doing it in front of a witness that hasn't yet testified, I found concerning.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, and that's going to be addressed later on with some of the other witnesses. But if this sort of conduct, where you invoke your religious beliefs, and we're a prosecutor and you're a defense attorney, if you invoke your religious beliefs in front of a jury, that's an absolute mistrial and a disqualification of the prosecutor for prosecutorial misconduct, right?
Again, I would assume that it would cause problems. I gotta be honest, I've not looked at what consequences that would have, but I mean, it's absolutely taboo. I wouldn't do it, and I've not ever seen anybody do it that I've been involved with. It's just, it's more like vouching or saying, "Hey, I know this guy didn't do it." When you start talking about things like that or trying to equate with the jury every attorney that's in front of a jury is trying to build a relationship with them, but you have to be subtle about that. You can't just go, "Hey, any of you LDS? I'm LDS." It would be completely improper.
Well, not only improper, it's something that falls within the guides of professional conduct. That's a basis for opposing counsel to ask for a mistrial if anybody enters their religious beliefs in front of a jury, right?
Absolutely.
So my question is this: to kind of do a back way into this, Mr. Wood, on the supposed idea that he was going to do a meet and greet, proceeds to engage in Miss Shiflett. And by my recollection, he only asked a couple of questions, but there was a lot of discussion. And in that discussion, he invoked his religious views. So in other words, he's telling a witness who is going to be testifying in the trial, "By the way, I'm LDS. By the way, I'm Mormon. Show me some favor." And that way, when you get in front of the jury and you offer that testimony, the intimidation and the influence has already occurred before you get in front of the jury. So in many ways, isn't that worse?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Mr. Pryor is testifying. It's not a question. He's leading the witness to an answer.
I'll sustain the objection.
What's worse, doing this in front of a jury or coercing and intimidating a witness prior to the time they go in front of a jury?
Your Honor, I'm going to also object to the question. This doesn't have anything to do with the jury. It's just a witness in a case. So it's not relevant.
I'll sustain that objection based on relevance, and I think it did misstate the statements contained in the recording, which we just listened to. So that objection's also sustained.
All right, I'll move on, Judge. Thank you. What about calling a defendant in a case a wimpy person, Mr. Smith? Is that problematic?
You know, I know there's a lot of bluster that goes on in prosecuting people that do violent things. You know, I never prosecuted murder cases. I was involved with prosecuting child molesters. And there's a fair amount of banter that goes on amongst the professionals in there about these kinds of people. And so I've been to lunches where they referred to child molesters by lots of names that were demeaning and not nice, and unprofessional. But it's in a professional setting. You know, I'm at lunch with other prosecutors or cops, and we're talking about, what we think about child molesters. But in the context of talking to, the sister-in-law of the individual that you're talking about, I didn't see a purpose for that, other than to, kind of seed the ground for her testimony to be of a similar vein. And, this is what we're looking for, kind of thing. And that was concerning to me.
And the concern is that Summer Shiflett is a witness potentially in this case, right?
Right. I mean, again, and I haven't been a prosecutor in a long time, but to talk to someone prior to them giving 6 hours of testimony, and interview time on the facts of a case in this manner, I found it to be improper. I don't know what purpose it served, other than to kind of muddy the water and make himself a witness.
Well, and make himself a witness because he then went on to discuss the fact that when he was in Hawaii, I don't know why he was in Hawaii other than apparently he was in Hawaii, but then he observes what he says is appears that the defendant, Mr. Daybell, appeared that he was about to pee his pants. What's the purpose of saying that to Summer Shiflett?
Your Honor, I'll object. That just calls for speculation.
I agree. It is speculative, but I don't know. That's my whole point. I don't know that. And Mr. Pryor, let me say this too, just in response to that last question.
Mr. Smith.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Smith, please.
Yes.
We're on a Zoom proceeding. We're making a record here. I have a court reporter.
Okay.
Wait until the questions are finished, and when there's an objection, please wait for the ruling on the objection before you continue with your response, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Judge, I'm not good at being in this seat. I apologize.
Understood.
Where are we at?
I heard an objection from somebody. I'm not sure who objected, but I'm waiting for the court's determination.
I sustain an objection by Mr.
All right, I'll continue on. Mr. Smith, you had some discussion about a prior question and that you had a comment, and if you want to relay that comment, by all means.
This conversation that I had with my client and Mr. Wood, again, and just earlier I had testified that I didn't remember when I started the recording. From listening to the recording, I clearly started it after I got into the room. And to be completely candid with this court, my intent was to record the conversations of the interview. When I walked into the room with Mr. Wood, it had a less of an introductory feeling to it because he brought his deputy in with him. And again, part of the training that I received as a prosecutor and that I still employ as a defense attorney is that there needs to be somebody else in the conversation that can be a witness in case there's a dispute to that conversation. So if I'm interviewing a witness and I ask that witness about X, Y, and Z, and then they come into court and testify A, B, and C, I have to have some method of impeaching them, either through another witness or recording of the call or something like that. So a flag went off in my mind when he brought his deputy in to meet my client and myself, and to kind of do this introduction stuff. And that's when I got my recorder out and turned it on. That put a flag off in my mind that this wasn't going to be, hey, I'm John, or I'm Rob. This is my deputy. Good luck today. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you when it's all done. It was more than that, and that's when I turned it on. And I wanted to supplement my previous testimony. Like I said, I hadn't heard the tape recording in a while, and I didn't remember when I'd turned it on.
And when you make mention of the fact that a flag went off, you're referring to the fact that you felt that there may be some inappropriate discussion going to take place. Is that fair?
No, I didn't think it was going to be inappropriate. I thought it was going to be adversarial.
Okay.
And the fact that he was backing himself up with a witness told me, at least it made my, the flag, the spider senses, whatever you want to call it, the defense instinct, that I needed to be recording this conversation because he's got a witness in here. I need to have my recorder running. I had no idea that the conversation was going to go the direction that it went.
And having participated in the conversation, the 18-minute discussion, because this wasn't Mr. Wood questioning Summer Shiflett, was it?
No.
This discussion was Mr. Wood presenting his case to a witness. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And Mr. Wood attempting to influence Summer Shiflett to testify a certain way. Would you agree with that?
Again, I don't know what his intents were, but I can't see any other reason to tell her the things that he did other than to steer her in that direction.
And when you say steer, you mean influence, do you not?
Correct. It's another word for that. Yes.
Okay. Judge, I think at this time, I'm done questioning with Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Smith, and I'll defer to the court at this time.
All right, thank you. I'll allow cross-examination at this time. Mr. Evans.
Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Smith, thank you for being here today. Just a few questions. Where was the recorder at when this was being recorded?
It was my phone. It was this phone. And it was either in my hand or it was sitting on the table. I don't remember. I think we were standing for this conversation. I think we never sat down. We were standing in a small ante room off of the entry lobby of the Chandler Police Department. I think I'd set my stuff down on a table and my phone was on top of that.
And just so I understand this, Mr. Wood or the law enforcement, they contacted you and you contacted your client and you agreed to this conversation taking place, this meeting taking place?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, I mean, we're all lawyers. If something gets out of hand, and I know you've done this and we've all done this, but if I'm getting on your client's case, you can say, Evans, time out. Or I'm going to direct my client not to answer that question, or this interview is over, right?
Sure.
At no time during this meeting did you ever object to any question. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mike, I was doing what my client wanted to do, which was to participate in this interview. And you got to understand, I wasn't running it. She was running it. I was there as legal counsel and she wanted to do this interview. She wanted to give testimony. She'd been asked to give testimony in that sense. And so she was going to do that. I didn't want to shut this down, but that doesn't take away the concerns that I had at the time. There also wasn't a forum to go to. If I've got a problem with the question you're asking, I could object to it in a setting, not in this setting. It's not my position here, but there's a judge to go to, or hey, let's table this right now and straighten this out in a deposition or something like that. But it wasn't that type of setting. This was unique. Like I said, I've done this type of setting many, many times, but to have this kind of conversation was a little bit, oh, we're doing this. Okay. And I didn't know where it was going to go. I knew I was recording it and I could deal with it later.
But you could have objected or told your client not to answer or ended the conversation, right?
Well, as was said, there wasn't a whole lot of questioning going on. In fact, I don't know there was any questioning other than, a couple of mild questions. It was mostly just conversation from Mr. Wood.
I want to talk about the tone. I mean, you hear you guys are joking a little bit throughout when it was discussed at the very beginning that murder charges might be coming on this. You said good, right? You remember that?
I don't remember that, but I don't dispute it.
Is your client a vulnerable adult by chance?
No.
Have any medical issues or anything that makes her incompetent to testify?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then finally, I want to talk about, you made an issue that Mr. Wood started talking about the death penalty or murder charges. I note from the audio, and I don't know if, do you have the transcript in front of you, Mr. Smith?
No.
On page 11, starting in paragraph 5, it's pretty clear that your client was the one that initiated that conversation with Mr. Wood of talk to me about is death penalty on the table? What's going on?
I'm going to object at this
Yeah,
point.
you're not objectable.
Go ahead, John.
Hold on. What's
Go ahead, I'll defer to Mr. Means, but I object to Mr. Evans questioning in this manner, as suggesting that it's obvious that that's Ms. Shiflett that initiated it. I object to the form of the question.
Your Honor. The objection's overruled. You can continue. Were we referring to the transcript? I know that's been admitted.
I don't have it, but at least I don't think I have it.
Yeah. And let me just, so I actually misspoke. It's page 16, starting paragraph 2 through 9. But your client is the one that's asking Mr. Wood, what's the weight of the terms in jail? Is this a death penalty thing? Do you remember that, Mr. Smith?
I do. Yeah. She definitely initiated that conversation.
Okay.
Mr. Evans, if with the transcript being admitted, if you are going to refer to it, I think, and ask the witness to confirm that, it'd be appropriate if you can publish it based on, I don't know if you have, we should be able to enter it in. And so you can use your share screen to locate that part of it if it's on your computer, and then it comes up on the share screen on the Zoom if you want to do that. And if you're done with the question, that's fine, but for future reference, that's how we need to handle that.
Right. Thank you, Your Honor. And Your Honor, I'm done with that question. Mr. Smith, just a few others. I heard in the interview, Mr. Wood, that told you and your client, you don't have to talk to us, but you have agreed to that. Do you agree with that recollection?
Yes.
And it's important. My last question, you said that you didn't believe anything was inappropriate here, but you had a concern that it might turn adversarial. Can you tell us what you meant by being adversarial and not inappropriate?
Yeah, let me be really clear about that. When there was obviously conversation that had transpired prior to the beginning of the recording, we were several minutes into it by the time I turned it on, and the beginning of it did involve Mr. Wood introducing us to him and his deputy, and thanking Summer for coming in, kind of like he ended the interview with, or the meeting with, and I went into it, to the day, knowing that I was going to record the interview, and was prepared to do that. I told my client I was going to do that, those kinds of things, but did not turn on the recording when I initially walked into this interview ante room with Mr. Wood and his deputy and my client. When I got in there and his deputy was in there, I thought, well, is he bring her in just to introduce, or was he bring her in to have a witness into there for the conversation? And initially the conversation was introductory, and this is a deputy, and we didn't know who she was. I'd never met her before, but then it went from that point to these other conversations, and that's when I reached down and turned on my recorder. Again, when I say adversarial, what made me think adversarial was the fact that he had a witness for the conversation. What made me turn on the recording was the topics and the kind of the tone of the discussion at that point in time.
And Mr. Smith, last question. When you turned on the recording, you didn't say, "Hey, folks, just so you know, I just turned on the recording." I mean, we don't hear anything like that in any of the tape, right?
No, I did not, nor do I believe I need to.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Pryor, do you have any redirect?
Judge, I think, do you want to give Mr. Means an opportunity to cross?
I would. Mr. Means, do you have any cross-examination?
Not cross, Your Honor, no.
Okay, and we'll get to your direct in a moment. Mr. Pryor, any redirect before we move on to Mr. Means?
Mr. Smith, the comment from the prosecutor about adversarial, that was initially what the concern was before you turned on the recording, correct?
That was my instinct, was that he's got a witness to the conversation. Is this going to turn adversarial?
Okay. And then after you returned on the recording, it was because you found the topics and the discussion to be highly inappropriate. Is that fair?
Yes, I wanted a record of it because we were discussing facts of the case, and it was, getting opinions from my client and sharing opinions from the state. It was that kind of conversation. They were discussing the death penalty. Where it turned on, it was already discussing that topic. That's when I turned it on.
And then it proceeded to go into disparaging remarks about the defense counsel for Lori Vallow, right?
Correct.
Disparaging remarks about Chad Daybell, correct?
Your Honor, I'll object to the disparaging remarks. There were remarks made that Mr. Counsel or Mr. Pryor's testifying.
I'll sustain the objection in that the recording obviously speaks for itself. And the court can go through what was said on.
And what I'll ask Mr. Smith is, do you personally consider the remarks made about Mr. Means disparaging remarks?
I do.
Do you consider the remarks made about Chad Daybell disparaging remarks?
They are, absolutely.
Do you have any other explanation other than Mr. Wood trying to influence a material witness in a case for why he engaged in 18 minutes of discussion with Summer Shiflett?
Your Honor, I'll object. Speculation.
I'll overrule that. The witness can answer if you want.
As I said, I understood the purpose of the conversation to be introductory and kind of just a preamble to the interview. I see no purpose for the type of discussion that we had other than the reasons you suggested.
All right. Judge, I'll defer at this point on this witness. Judge, I would like to have this witness made available in the future in the event I need some rebuttal testimony. Thank you.
Okay, he won't be released yet. We're in the interest of efficiency. Then I talked about the procedure we use, but Mr. Means, we've got this witness here. Did you intend to call Mr. Smith as a witness in support of your motion as well?
I did, Your Honor. And just a few questions, not a lot.
Okay.
Oh my
Then Mr. Means,
God.
if you'd like to commence with any direct examination, you can do so.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Smith, I'll try to avoid repetitive questions here for efficiency of the court. You've listened to this recording. In this recording, Mr. Wood makes reference to speaking to, or sounds like speaking to, multiple people regarding this case. In terms of
He's got feedback.
Specifically about having a conversation with Colby. Are you aware if Mr. Wood has spoken with any other person directly in this case?
I'll tell you what I know, and that's just like I said earlier, that he had told me they were coming down here to interview witnesses. I don't remember that he gave me a list of who he was going to interview, but I mean, I could probably name half the list of the people that he spoke to. He did tell us in his conversations in the interviews, not him, the investigators told us some of the people that they had spoken with. But yeah, I understood he was down here talking to other witnesses about the case, and he may have been down to Arizona one other time. As I indicated earlier, this was, I think, the second setting that they tried to interview my clients in.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to review a pleading filed in this case entitled "The Affidavit of Rob Wood in Support of Objection to Defendant's Motion to Disqualify Prosecuting Attorney and Motion to Extend Time on Motion to Dismiss"?
I did.
Okay. And this document, Your Honor, is obviously in the file. I'm going to read you paragraph 6 from this affidavit, and I'd like your thoughts on this. It says, "The meeting I attended with Mr. Smith, Mrs. Shiflett, and Ms. Pastinas came about as a result of Ms. Pastinas reaching out to my office and law enforcement through her attorney, Mr. Smith." Would you agree with that description?
No, I don't know if Zulema ever reached out to his office prior to my representation, but I don't believe that I ever reached out on behalf of Zulema to initiate this. My recollection is that they contacted me and said, "We'd like to talk to your witnesses or your clients as witnesses."
So would it be your opinion that that is not an accurate statement?
That's my recollection. And as I said, I don't know if Ms. Pastinas contacted them prior to my representation, but she never told me about that.
Okay. Well, it says in the paragraph 6, and I'm sorry, the last portion of the sentence, Ms. Pastinas reaching out to my office, in reference to Mr. Wood prosecutor's office, and law enforcement through her attorney, Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
So specifically stating it was you that reached out to arrange this meeting.
And here's the unique thing in answer to that question, Mr. Means, here's the unique thing about Ms. Pastinas. Her approach in my representation of her has been to keep her head down and stay out of the limelight and the attention. She's not done any interviews. She's not done any media appearances. She's not agreed to talk to anybody. And the only reason why she agreed to talk to the state is because they wanted to talk to her and they offered her use immunity. And so that's what got us to that point. It was not because she was anxious to talk to anybody, because she was not.
Okay, I think Mr. Pryor and Mr. Evans covered a lot of the questions I've covered, but I do have just a few more for you. In listening to this recording and the totality of the statement said, you've already testified that it appeared the motive to be influential of the witness. Would you agree it was attempt to coach as well?
The whole conversation, what the problem I have with the whole conversation is that, and I'm not saying that Mr. Wood was in there twisting arms or putting hard pressure on them. You know, I've been involved in situations like that where a prosecutor, you know, threatens charges and things like that. You know, that's the real weight of a prosecutor coming to bear on bringing influence on somebody. It wasn't that type of thing. It was the more subtle, I'm a nice guy, and I'm sure he is. You know, you want to help me, help the state, help the case. You know, and it wasn't necessary. She was already there willing to participate. She didn't need any inducement or enticing in order to testify. I found it, and that's what my first concern about it was. I was like, why are we doing this? She's already come in, consented to all this. We didn't need to soften the beach with these kinds of comments. And so it clearly was to influence her. It clearly was to have her, you know, kind of seated for this upcoming interview that she was going to have. And just, you know, the next room we were going to go into was going to be this interview. And I saw no purpose for it. And I found it to be unprofessional and concerning.
Would you agree, especially taking in context the conversation regarding death penalty and the relationship in which you testified earlier between Mrs. Shiflett and Lori, that this conversation put Mrs. Shiflett in somewhat of a compromised position as a witness?
Look, as I've said earlier, I've been doing this for 27, 28 years. I've been involved with legal practice for 30 years. I have never in my life heard a conversation like the phone call I heard between Lori and Summer. It was gut-wrenching. It is raw. It is horrible to listen to. And this is the emotional state of a witness, my client, who has lost one sister to death, another brother to death, and now another sister to jail and potentially death. And I found the whole conversation unnecessary and concerning. It was almost torturous to even be discussing about, well, we may take another member of your family. You know, and I know Rob's not going to kill her. I mean, it's going to be a death penalty. It's going to be a process, and it's going to be, you know, that whole thing. And you know, but just the purpose of the conversation, I didn't see it. I don't know what it was going to do. And it was concerning to me because I know I've had conversations with Mr. Wood about that phone call between Lori and Summer. And he's aware of it. He's expressed to me in a very human way his concerns about, you know, how emotional that was and how hard that was for my client. So I found this conversation substantially concerning because of that history. This isn't a normal case. This is a weird case, and that history behind it it bears explaining.
Would you agree that this conversation, again, looking at the totality of the situation and the relationship and the emotional connection in which you have described, would potentially impede a truthful, straightforward testimony from Mrs. Shiflett, given the context of this conversation?
Your Honor, I'll object for speculation.
Your Honor, I think we have if I may respond.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We have a witness here who has 27 years of legal experience and was involved in this recording and has obviously had multiple conversations with Mr. Wood and Mrs. Shiflett and has a better understanding than I think any of us regarding the totality of this situation, including the recording and what was before. His prior testimony discussing the emotional connection of Summer and Lori, and then having a conversation of death penalty and religious aspects of these type of things with the prosecutor, I think he's the person in the best position to offer us whether his opinion or not, or whether this might impede Summer's testimony. I think he should be allowed to answer the question, and then the court can weigh it for what it's worth.
All right. Well, the question really is whether or not this conversation would impede the witness potentially at some future hearing from offering truthful testimony. I think that does call for speculation, so I'll sustain that objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Means. Mr. Evans, cross-examination by the state in light of that direct examination.
None, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, Mr. Pryor, do you have any cross-examination as it relates to the
Mr. Smith, based on the discussion that took place between Mr. Wood, this wasn't an interview, was it?
No,
This was a narrative that Mr. Wood presented to your client, correct?
he did the majority of the talking. Yes.
And the narrative that was presented was basically his ideas about how this case should proceed, right?
Your Honor, I'll just object. We've been down this road numerous times. We have the conversation, we've got the transcript. It seems like we're hauling down old ground again.
I will sustain objection.
Do you believe the manner in which Mr. Wood discussed his theory and the facts of this case impacted Summer Shiflett?
Objection, again, speculation.
I'll overrule that objection if the witness has an answer.
Mr. Pryor, I'm sorry. You cut out partway through your question. I heard the objection and the judge overruling it, but I didn't hear the question. Could you repeat it?
The question is whether or not the discussion that Mr. Wood had with Summer Shiflett and presentation of his narrative impacted your client, Summer Shiflett.
I believe it did. Before I disclosed this, I had a discussion with her about why I was disclosing this, to get her authorization to disclose this conversation to another attorney. And she was in agreement with me doing that.
Okay. All right. No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think that concludes then the testimony of Mr. Smith. Mr. Means, you made some mention that, or Mr. Pryor, I don't recall, that you may want him still available for future testimony in this hearing. Is that correct?
It is, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Smith, I'm not sure what your day has in store, how long this hearing will be, but are you able to be available if we request to have you recalled in this matter?
Yeah, Judge, this is unique. Normally I would be in a courtroom and sitting out in the hall waiting to be recalled. Does that mean I'm going to go on mute, or I'm going to be unceremoniously kicked out of the room and admitted later? I don't know how, and I can do that, yes, or I could get a phone call or a text message saying, we need you again. I'm available, yes.
Judge, my preference would be that Mr. Smith, if needed, be contacted and asked to log back onto Zoom. I understand the constraints of an attorney and the time, so I think it's inappropriate to ask Mr. Smith to stay on, but if we need him, just see if we could get him back through a phone call or otherwise.
Okay. If you want to, we'll either put you back in the waiting room and you can just do other things, or if you'd like to just log off, Mr. Smith, then we will reach out to contact you at a future time if.
Great. I'll log out. That's just fine.
All right. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Pryor, who do you intend to call as your next witness?
Judge, I would call Dr. James Davidson.
All right, why don't we start then with your examination of Dr. Davidson, and then at some point we will take a mid-morning break, but we can do that here in a little bit unless, Madam Reporter, are you okay, or would you like a break at this time?
No, Judge, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Mr. Pryor, if you'd like to commence with your examination of your witness.
Do you want him sworn, Your Honor?
Mr. Davidson, would you please raise your right hand?
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Sir, would you state your name and spell your last name for the record for me, please?
Yes, it's James Davidson, Davidson.
Dr. Davidson, how are you employed?
I'm in a private practice of forensic psychology, doing civil, criminal, and family law in various states.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about your educational background, sir?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Michigan State University. I have a Doctor of Philosophy from Kent State University in Psychology. I have advanced family law mediation training from Southern Methodist University. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of continuing education in forensic psychology matters, and have also done training for continuing legal education as well as of other psychologists.
Can you give me a little bit of information about your prior experience as an expert testifying in litigation?
I've testified in several states. I'm going to restrict this to criminal matters just for simplicity, but testified in various states on mitigation in Idaho, 1925-22 examinations, 18-207 for mental status at time of offense, 18-11 for competency, and then general forensic evaluations when there may not be in the criminal code a particular test or structure for a report for an issue. I've done hundreds and hundreds of these in various places, done insanity defenses in states that allow insanity defenses. In Idaho, of course, it's one of 4 that does not, and have done this for probably now 30 years.
Okay. And you mentioned forensic evaluations. Can you elaborate a little bit on what is a forensic evaluation?
Forensic evaluation is the intersection of a legal issue and a field of study, in my case, behavioral health. And so in every state, if we look at criminal issues, a forensic evaluation will deal with a particular issue. So if you have a mental state at time of offense, it is the culpability or the ability of the defendant to rationally be able to understand the consequences of their actions from a mental condition. If somebody has pled guilty to a charge, the court may require or want to have a mitigation report. What's their risk of future violence? What's their mental condition? And that would be used in consideration of sentencing. So a forensic evaluation is going to be an evaluation that will rely upon 5 principal areas. It's going to rely upon interview, testing, observation, record review, and collateral information as a structure, with the nature of the report varying depending on the issue presented to me by the court or by an attorney who's retained my services.
So in other words, asking or an attorney asking you to conduct a forensic evaluation, this is somewhat of a specialized field. Would you agree with me?
It's a highly specialized field, and I would agree with you.
Okay, and in this particular case, this conducting forensic evaluations, have you previously been identified and qualified as an expert witness in offering your testimony and opinion in regards to forensic evaluations?
I have in multiple states.
Okay, and how many times would you believe, you don't have to give me an exact number, have you been qualified as an expert witness to offer an opinion after conducting a forensic evaluation?
I'll tell you that most cases don't require testimony. They are reports used for settlement, or settlement occurs, a plea bargain. But in the last 5 years, looking at, pardon me, civil requirements that I have a 5-year history of testimony, I've testified in over 50 cases.
Okay. So a combination of your educational background and your knowledge in doing this, your skill and experience, you believe that you're qualified to offer an opinion based on what forensic analysis you've been asked to perform. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to move for this witness to be qualified as an expert witness for purposes of offering his opinion in this forensic analysis that he's been asked to perform in this case.
All right, there's a motion. Is there any objection to that, Mr. Evans?
None, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Davidson will be considered an expert under the rules of evidence and under Idaho Criminal Rule 16 for purposes of this hearing. Based on that, so Mr. Pryor, you can continue with your examination.
Now, Mr. Davidson, I do want to relay that you and I have not spoken about this case prior to this, you being hired. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Mr. Means hired you as an expert to do a forensic analysis in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as part of that forensic analysis, can you relay to the parties in the court what steps you took and what information you had to prepare your report?
Well, the steps that I first took would be to understand what's the nature of the assignment. And in doing an assignment of this nature, I'm always approaching it from a standpoint of I know nothing, I have no prior opinion, and that my task is to provide an unbiased report as if I was appointed by the court directly. So given that, I was informed that the task was to listen and review a recording and a transcript of that recording to determine my impressions based on my experience and training of the nature of that conversation, whether there were any issues or problems, if that conversation was put into context as being a conversation prior to an interview of a witness in a criminal matter. So I listened to the recording. I also went through the transcript and reviewed the transcript. And then based on the training and research that I did concerning interviews in a criminal matter of a witness, formulated my opinions and observations about the appropriateness, the inappropriateness of whatever occurred in that transcript and recording. And out of that generated a report called a Forensic Analysis of Summer Shiflett's interview by Prosecutor Robert Wood.
Okay. And that report was attached as part of a submission in this particular case. Is that correct? Or if you're not aware of that, that's fine.
I didn't actually submit it. I turned that report into Attorney Means, and I'm sure he submitted it in whatever fashion he did.
Now, I would like to talk about the type of models that are used and how that affects your decision in this particular case. Can you discuss that with me a little bit?
Sure can. Interviewing any witness is an area of great concern because historically, going back decades, interview techniques have been highly prejudicial and biasing and have led to problems such as false testimony. It's led to omission of facts in testimony. And so over the years, internationally, there's been efforts to come up with various models of how to interview a witness to obtain as best as possible untainted, spontaneous information with a really fine grain of detail that would describe what that witness has to offer in testifying about a case. So I have listed in my report, and I'll just run through it very quickly, examples of very prominent models, both in this country and particularly in the United Kingdom and its those in its empire. There's the access model, which is an acronym that stands for assess, collect, collate, evaluate, survey, and summarize in interviewing a witness. There is the ABE model, which is in the United Kingdom for interviewing children, achieving best evidence. There's a conversation management model, which is based on the elements of reciprocity, response, and a managed sequence of greeting and orienting the interviewee. There's the peace model, which is used in the United Kingdom and Canada. And the peace model is one that's inquisitorial, but not confrontational or accusatory. And that came about because of issues that they'd had in prior criminal cases of prejudiced and tainted information in high-profile cases. There's the NICHD model. This is a model used particularly when there's allegations of abuse of a child or an adolescent. And it's a model that emphasizes elements that is common to the other models, such as open-ended questions. It emphasizes having a narrative to establish a robust level of testimony from an interviewee. It also establishes the fact that the person is going to offer to tell the truth. There's a Wicklander-Zulawski model, which is particularly used more in business, but it has the same kinds of elements to avoid civil litigation, where there's an emphasis on non-confrontational narrative rather than confrontational and a conversational approach to try to developing information from a witness. And then the granddaddy of everything that really spawned a lot of these models that attempt to get high quality, reliable information from the court is the Reed model, which goes back to the 40s and the 50s, which is used in criminal investigations where there is theoretically initially an interview of a potential suspect that turns into an interrogation. And the Reed model is one that has a lot of critics because it had and has become at times highly prejudicial in its techniques of refuting whatever a person would say in the interrogation if it doesn't line up with the theory of the investigators. So those are an example of various models that have been developed. And just parenthetically, those models were developed because there had been cases in various countries of people that were convicted only to find later that the evidence and how it was obtained and the way it was presented had prejudiced what people had to say, leading to convictions inappropriately of various people, going back to very, very publicly going back to the 70s.
Now, talk to me a little bit about the idea of best practices.
Well, best practices obviously is going to be in the eye of the beholder, but we know in the legal world that you have restrictions on how you can ask questions and the nature of the questions, and that you have to lay foundation to bring evidence into play into a court proceeding. We know in the behavioral health world that how questions are asked can lead to different answers. And so the effort in best practices is to codify as aspirational practices. What do you do to interview a person to get high quality information that avoids manipulation, that avoids suggestibility, and it avoids coercion? And in doing that, best practices, there's an effort to keep bias out of it, which is inherent in any interview. There's an effort to have it be fair. There's an effort to have the interview's information not be derived from closed-ended questions, leading questions, but open-ended to hear what do they have to say and develop that narrative robustly. There's an emphasis in best practices to have basic principles in play, that a person would act ethically. When I do forensic interviews, I'm doing it as a member of the American Psychological Association, also as a licensee in 7 different states. If I'm a lawyer, I'm doing under the American Bar Association and the Criminal Code of Conduct in a particular state. So ethics are important. Integrity is important because in a criminal case, we're trying to determine whether there's a level of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is based on testimony, where we're looking at people telling us the truth, acting honestly and with fairness, and in doing so, not manipulating information. So we have really an integrity issue that's important in best practices. We also have in best practices avoiding inappropriate interviewer behavior. Efforts to interview should not attempt to influence, exploit, shape, or misrepresent what a person has to say. And so, for example, you would not ask in the case of an abuse situation, tell me where they touched you. You would start off with asking, tell me what happened, and maybe nothing happened. So you can see very easily how a question could influence the response of a person. In best practices, we're looking at being sensitive to vulnerable witnesses so that there's not any sense of undue influence. Vulnerable witnesses can be people with cognitive difficulties, emotional difficulties, people that are emotionally highly engaged or tied into a matter, people that have age issues, that have issues of fatigue. Sometimes there's cultural issues. And so with a vulnerable witness, it's very, very important that the level and the professionalism in the interviewing be at its very, very best to avoid misunderstanding and avoid having a person be misled and guided in their testimony rather than offering unfettered, free, and accurate testimony. And best practices, just to wrap it up, typically there's an opening procedure that goes by the mnemonic of GMAC, where we have a greeting, we have an explanation, we have a definition of the mutual activity. We're going to do an interview on such and such. This is how we're going to do it. And then a closing, thanking somebody for appearing. So best practices are anticipated and expected. And certainly in a case where there would be, from a forensic psychology standpoint, a forensic interview, if I did not conduct that interview, for example, in an allegation of abuse by NICHD standards, which are similar and identical to what's used in the Child Advocacy Center, my testimony should rightfully be challenged. If I interviewed an adult and I'm doing a mental state at time of offense or an insanity plea, my interview needs to be done as neutrally as possible, because I'm retrospectively trying to determine what that person's mindset was 6 months, a year, 2 years in the past. So the best practices is pivotal in any of the activities that involve interviewing of people in a forensic setting.
And to follow up on your response, best practices also involves not invoking any bias or feelings or prejudice to someone that you're talking to about a particular case. Is that fair?
I don't think, yes, it is fair. I don't qualify it in saying that in any situation, there's always some amount of bias, and it's difficult because if you're the person doing the interviewing, it's hard to see the trees for the forest. But yes, to minimize bias is critical.
Now, you had an occasion in this case to review the tape recording that Mr. Means provided to you. Is that correct?
I did.
And you had an opportunity to review the transcript that's been admitted as, I believe, exhibit number 1 in this particular case. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as part of that process, you prepared a report, approximately 24 pages, detailing your findings in regards to that review. Is that correct?
I did.
And based on your experience and knowledge in this case, and having testified numerous times, you came up with some conclusions regarding and findings regarding this tape recording. Is that fair?
Regarding the narrative on the recording, I did.
And before I start, I guess I want to clarify something. You're aware that this recording took place. Would you describe the interaction between Mr. Wood and Ms. Shiflett in the first 18 minutes as an interview?
No, not at all.
What would you describe it as?
I would describe it as a session or a meeting where the witness was obviously being greeted for the first time to educate and inform the witness of the prosecutor's perspective, theory on the case, and to elicit the participation of the witness in that theory of the case.
Okay. And Judge, I have a lengthy discussion that's going to take place with Dr. Davidson. I would ask if the court wants to take a break at this time before I engage in this lengthy discussion regarding his findings, or would the court like me to proceed? And I will defer to the court's wisdom.
I think this would be a good time to take a mid-morning break, so we'll do that. Before we move on, there was one concern I wanted to address there with Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson, in offering your testimony here, are you have you been reading from or referring to anything outside of just your own memory here? I had a concern.
No, I have reviewed carefully my report, Your Honor, but I'm operating on my memory in preparation for this hearing.
Okay, understood. I just want to be, it's a little concerning when we do these Zoom hearings that everybody's on a computer, but we don't always know what's there. So I just want to make sure you do testify. If you are referring to something, we need to put that on the record and know what you're referring to and give an opportunity for a possible objection. So keep that in mind as we move forward with your testimony. With that said, why don't we take a break for about 20 minutes? So let's plan on starting up again at about 10 after. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thanks, council. We'll come back on and continue this hearing at 10 after.
Okay, guys. Sorry about that. I couldn't get back to my StreamYards tab. Crap, I can't talk. Anyways, thanks for chatting with me this morning. I'm going to end the stream. I did put the link to finish watching this hearing in the chat, and I actually pinned it. I may try to put all this up in a video later on. I'm going to try to. It's just according to how long it is. But anyways, channel members, I will see y'all tonight, probably around 8 or 8:30 for our channel members live stream. We're probably going to be doing some true crime trivia or maybe reading true crime facts. I'm not sure yet. We're going to do one of the two. And also, I've been reading the Chris Watts book, The Murders of Christopher Watts. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight, too. Anyways, y'all have a great day. Be safe. Be kind.